Hi, I'm Febby and I'm going to explain about noun clause and adjective clause. Some people are still confused about what a sentence is, what a clause is, and how to differentiate between a clause and a sentence. And now I will explain about a clause. What is a clause? A clause is a group of words that has both a subject and a predicate. It means that a clause consists of at least a subject and a predicate. A clause is divided into two types. They are independent clause and dependent clause. According to Azar, 1989 explains that an independent clause is a complete sentence. In other words, independent clause is a simple sentence. It is also called main clause. For example, that book is mine. Let's analyze this sentence. That book is the subject. Is the verb or predicate. So we can conclude that book is mine is independent clause, or we can call it a simple sentence. Meanwhile, dependent clause is not a complete sentence. It must be part of an independent clause. It means that dependent clause cannot stand alone without independent clause. For example, that book which is on the table is mine. So please look at the words in red color, which is on the table. It is dependent clause. Which is on the table cannot stand alone and it doesn't have complete meaning. So, we can conclude that which is on the table is dependent clause and that book is mine is independent clause. Dependent clause is divided into three types. They are noun clause, adjective clause, and adverb clause. And for this time, I will explain about noun clause and adjective clause. Look at this picture. There are two people doing conversation.
Excuse me, sir. You look so confused. Can I help you? Yes, I lost my friend. Do you see a man who is wearing a gray sweater and black hat? No, I don't. But I can tell you where the information center is. Thank you so much.
From this dialogue, you can see that there are two clauses that are in red color. Who is wearing a gray sweater and black hat, and where this information center is. So what are they? Are they adjective clauses or are they noun clauses? So to know about that, let's continue. What is a noun clause? Noun clauses are dependent clauses that perform the same functions that regular nouns do. It means that noun clauses have the similar meaning with nouns. Noun clauses can function as subjects, subject complement, direct objects, object complement, and a positive. There are three kinds of words that can be used to introduce noun clauses. They are WH question words. For example, what, who, whom, when, where, why, which, whose, and how. And the second one, we have whether and if. And the third is that. And for information, these words are followed by subject and verb directly. They are also called connecting words or subordinator. A noun clause as a subject. A noun clause can function as the subject of a sentence, performing the role that a noun typically plays in a sentence. Let's see the example. That he arrived early plays the theme. Now let's analyze this sentence. That he arrived early is a noun clause with that as subordinator, and it is subject of the sentence. Pleased is the verb, the theme is direct object. So we can conclude that he arrived early is noun clause functioning as the subject. Noun clause as a direct object. A noun clause can function as the direct object of a verb, serving the role typically performed by a noun or pronoun in a sentence. For example, you must decide where you will go next holiday. You is the subject, must decide is the verb, where you will go next holiday is a noun clause with where as subordinator, and it is a direct object. So we can conclude that where you will go next holiday is the noun clause functioning as the direct object. A noun clause as a subject complement. The noun clause follows a linking verb and complements the subject of the sentence. It provides additional information about the subject or renames it, serving as a subject complement. Let's see the example. His wish is that he could travel the world. His wish is the subject of sentence. Is the verb or predicate. That he could travel the world is a noun clause with that as subordinator, and it is subject complement because that he could travel the world describes his wish. So we can conclude that he could travel the world is the noun clause functioning as the subject complement. A noun clause as an object complement. In grammar, an object complement is a word, phrase, or clause that directly follows and describes or completes the direct object of an attributive transitive verb. For example, you may call your husband whatever you wish. You is the subject of the sentence. May call is the verb. Your husband is a direct object, and whatever you wish is noun clause with whatever as subordinator, and the function is object complement. So you have to remember that the function of object complement to rename the direct object, your husband. So we can conclude that whatever you wish is a noun clause functioning an object of complement. A noun clause as an appositive. An appositive is a pronoun or noun that explains and identifies another noun or a pronoun. For example, the main question whether we should proceed with the project remains unanswered. The main question is the subject of the sentence. Remains is the verb, and unanswered is subject complement. Whether we should proceed with the project is a noun clause with whether as subordinator, and it is an appositive because whether we should proceed with the project describes the main question. So we can conclude that whether we should proceed with the project is the noun clause functioning as the appositive. Now let's come to what is an adjective clause. Adjective clause is a dependent clause that modifies a noun. It describes, identifies, or gives further information about a noun. Adjective clause is divided into two types. They are essential adjective clause and non-essential adjective clause. Essential adjective clause is a clause that contains information that when removed, the sentence ceases to hold the same meaning, it does not set off with commas. For example, the professor who teaches chemistry 101 is an excellent lecturer. Who teaches chemistry 101 describes the professor because we don't know which professor. So we need information to identify which professor. So it is called essential adjective clause. Essential adjective clause does not set off with commas. And the second one, non-essential adjective clause, is a clause that gives an additional description that does not necessarily need to understand the intentions of the writer. And it sets off with commas. For example, Professor Wilson, who teaches chemistry 101, is an excellent lecturer. Who teaches chemistry 101 is only additional information because we have already known the Professor Wilson. So Professor Wilson doesn't need to be re-identified. An adjective clause usually begins with a connecting word known as a relative pronoun. Remember that a pronoun replaces a noun. There are 5 relative pronouns that have different usage. Who is for person, a subject. Whom is for person as object. Which is for thing as subject or object. That is for person and thing for subject and object. And whose is for possession. My, your, our, their, her, his, its. For example, the students who sit in the front row are from China. So I will explain step by step the process how to make an adjective clause. To make an adjective clause, we need 2 sentences with the same noun. So you have to take 2 simple sentences that talk about the same noun. For example, the students are from China. They sit in the front row. You can see the second sentence. They sit in the front row. So they refers to the students. So they have the same noun. And they, the function is the subject. So we are going to make the second sentence the adjective clause. So replace the repeated noun or pronoun with correct relative pronoun. So what relative pronouns should we use? It is person and a subject. Who is the correct relative pronoun for these examples? So we can remove they and we replace they with who sit in the front row. And now the second simple sentence is an adjective clause and place it immediately after the noun you are describing. So the sentence becomes the students who sit in the front row are from China. The adjective clause is who sit in the front row. And you have to put this adjective clause after the noun because the function of adjective clause is to describe the noun. Let's analyze this sentence. The students who sit in the front row are from China. From this sentence, we can know which independent is and which dependent is. The students are from China is independent clause. Who sit in the front row is dependent clause or adjective clause. So the students is main subject of the sentence or is the main verb of the sentence. Meanwhile, who is the subject and relative pronoun of the clause. Sit is the verb of the clause. And the second sentence. The people whom we visited yesterday was very nice. For the first step, take two simple sentences that talk about the same noun. Again, the same noun. So you have to remember that the two sample sentences must have the same noun. The people were very nice. We visited them yesterday. So please focus again on the second sentence. We visited them yesterday. The pronoun them refers to the people in the first sentence. So we are going to make the second sentence the adjective clause. So replace the repeated noun or pronoun with the correct relative pronoun. So what relative pronoun should we use? The information is it is a person and an object. Yes, that's right. Whom. We can remove them and after that we replace them with whom. We visited whom yesterday. And the next step, if the adjective clause requires a connecting word or a relative pronoun, it needs to begin with it, so move it to the front. So we have to move whom to the front sentence. Whom we visited yesterday. Now, the second simple sentence is an adjective clause and place it immediately after the noun you are describing. And the sentence becomes, the people whom we visited yesterday were very nice. Whom we visited yesterday is an adjective clause which describes the people. Let's analyze the sentence. The people whom we visited yesterday were very nice. The people were very nice is an independent clause and whom we visited yesterday is a dependent clause as adjective clause. The people is the main subject, were is main verb. Meanwhile, whom is the relative pronoun and direct object. We is the subject of the clause and visited is the verb of the clause. The third example, I returned the money which I borrowed from my roommate. Still the same initial way that take two simple sentences that talk about the same noun. I returned the money, I borrowed it from my roommate. Again, you have to focus on the second sentence. I borrowed it from my roommate. The word it refers to the money. So we are going to make the second sentence the adjective clause. So replace the repeated noun or pronoun with the correct relative pronoun. It is thing and as object. So what relative pronoun should we use? That's correct. It is which. So I borrowed which from my roommate. So we can remove it and then replace it with which. If the adjective clause requires a connecting word, it needs to begin with it, so move it to the front. So we have to move which to the front sentence. Which I borrowed from my roommate. Now the second simple sentence is an adjective clause. Place it immediately after the noun you are describing. And the sentence becomes, I returned the money which I borrowed from my roommates. Which I borrowed from my roommate describes the money. Let's analyze the sentence. I returned the money which I borrowed from my roommate. I returned the money is an independent clause. Meanwhile, which I borrowed from my roommate is dependent clause. So I returned the money. We can analyze the sentence. I is the main subject, returned is the main verb of the sentence, and the money is the direct object of the sentence. Meanwhile, which is relative pronoun and direct object, I is the subject of clause, and borrowed is verb of the clause. Next example. The dress that she is wearing is new. The first step is take two simple sentences that talk about the same noun. The dress is new, she is wearing it. In the second sentence, we have she is wearing it, and the word it refers to the dress. We are going to make the second sentence the adjective clause, so replace the repeated noun or pronoun with the correct relative pronoun. It, we can replace it with which or that because it is the thing and also as the object. So it can be replaced by which and that. But in this case, I will replace it with that. So if the adjective clause requires a connecting word, it needs to begin with it, so move it to the front. So we have to move that to the front sentence. That she is wearing. Now the second simple sentence is an adjective clause and place it immediately after the noun you are describing. The dress that she is wearing is new. That she is wearing is an adjective clause that describes the dress. Let's analyze the sentence. The dress that she is wearing is new. The dress is new is independent clause. That she is wearing is dependent clause. The dress is main subject of the sentence. Is main verb of the sentence, and new is the subject complement. Meanwhile, that is a relative pronoun and direct object. She is the subject of the clause. Is wearing is the verb of the clause. The next one, I know the man whose bicycle was stolen. Again, we have to take two simple sentences that talk about the same noun. I know the man, his bicycle was stolen. His bicycle shows it is about possession. His bicycle. So his refers to the man. We are going to make the second sentence the adjective clause, so replace the repeated noun or pronoun with the correct relative pronoun. His bicycle was stolen. So we know directly what relative pronoun should we use. It is whose. So whose was stolen. Now the second simple sentence is an adjective clause and place it immediately after the noun you are describing. I know the man whose bicycle was stolen. And whose bicycle was stolen is an adjective clause describe the man. Whose bicycle was stolen is an adjective clause which describes the man. Let's analyze the sentence. I know the man whose bicycle was stolen. I know the man is independent clause. Meanwhile, whose bicycle was stolen is dependent clause as an adjective. I as a main subject of the sentence. Know is the main verb of the sentence. The man is the direct object. Meanwhile, whose bicycle is the subject of the clause with whose as a relative pronoun and was stolen as verb of the clause. From the explanation about noun clause and adjective clause, we can identify from explanation about noun clause and adjective clause what kinds of clauses they are. Yes, that's right. who is wearing a gray sweater and black hat is an adjective clause, and where the information center is a noun clause. That's good. You got a point. So we can conclude that noun clause and adjective clause are dependent clauses that often exist in a sentence. They cannot stand alone without independent clause. Noun clause and adjective clause have their own function and usage in the sentence. And for materials, I got them from some resources like books, slides, journals, and also some videos. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye!